5 attitudes that men love about women. In this video, you will discover how to overcome trust issues and finally stepping into your own self-worth. So if you're ready to learn these secrets and magnetize your man, then pop into the comment section. I am ready. I'm, of course, Antia, founder and creator of the Magnetize Your Man method. And look, this is the channel where we magnetize your man so that the man that you want, desires, and yes, pursues you forever. Now, of course, thanks for being a man magnet. And we acknowledge you so much for taking this time to improve your love life. Now, if you like, of course, my background, my content, or anything else that I have to share in this video, then hey, give it a like. And also, of course, don't forget to subscribe and let us know, pressing the bell and letting us know in the comment section, I have subscribed, so we can welcome you to the community. Now, also share this video with a girlfriend or two over a glass of wine and have some fun. And you know what? Lastly, watch this video to the very end because we have a very surprising bonus there as well. So let's go ahead and dive right into the 5 attitudes that men love about women. Number 5 is emotional range. This is extremely important because it creates charisma, it creates attraction, it creates fascination, but honestly, it actually creates trust. Why? Because we actually know that we have all those parts inside of ourselves, somewhere unconsciously. We know that we have a sad part. Why? Because we've experienced sadness. We also know that we have an angry side. Why? Well, because we experienced anger. So whatever we experienced in our life, we know if it's not being expressed, if we're not getting the reflection of it, there is something missing. There is a gap. And why is there a gap? Is it because you're holding back? Is it because you don't really trust him? Is it because you don't really like him? Either way, there will be this lack of rapport there long-term between you and your man. Now, in order to, of course, increase your emotional range, like you actually want to see what is the emotion that you have suppressed inside of yourself. What emotion do you judge the most inside of yourself? And that is then the emotion that you get to express, that you get to make friends with. For example, when I was on my own dating journey, I had definitely suppressed the anger part. Why? Why? Because my dad was angry a lot of times when I was growing up. And what did I tell myself? I'm never gonna be like that. And of course, what that meant was I had to distort, delete, generalize every time when there was a need coming up to assert myself because I didn't want to express my anger. But of course, that made me a really one-dimensional, very flat, and honestly inauthentic woman. So should I be surprised that I attracted inauthentic men into my life? Should I be surprised that I attracted men into my life who were emotionally conflicted? Well, what would you call it if you feel anger inside of yourself, but you can't really access it, and you're definitely not going to express it? Now, the same was true of sadness as well. As a matter of fact, as I was sitting in church and I heard like beautiful singers, and I saw the audience crying. I was confused. Why are they crying? I mean, it's a beautiful song, but I don't know if I need to necessarily cry for it. So I didn't even realize how much rock I actually had around me, how tight I actually was. That, of course, massively impacted my emotional range. And so I got to finally break through that and attract an incredible man into my own life. So, of course, my husband of 7.5 years, who we share all kinds of emotional ranges with each other. Now, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Which country or state are you watching from? Number 4, this is incredibly important, is you're not checking constantly what's the status of the relationship. Where are we headed? What are we? What's going on? There's not this constant check-in, because honestly, it's going to be a little needy. Like, why do you need to just enjoy your time with me? That's what the man would think. Right? Like, why is there this constant check-in? Why do you need to constantly have a label? Why do you have to have this constant need for certainty? That, of course, speaks from a place of insecurity. And what that further says is that you are actually expecting him to make you feel secure. And he's going to feel that weight on his shoulders, that you're not taking care of that part inside of you that needs attention, that has certain needs, but everything is falling on his shoulders. Now, when that happens all the time, that's, of course, really unattractive. What I'm not saying is, of course, after a certain amount of time to check in, what's the status of our relationship? But not like, hey, what are you thinking, like every week, right? Like, where are we? Do you still feel the same? That's what I'm talking about. Because you really want to come from a place of spaciousness, because that makes a man extremely attracted to you. Now, number 3 is you empower him on his mission. See, the men have to fulfill their purpose in order to feel, especially the more masculine they are, and the qualities that women describe to me when they come to me, what they desire in a man is they want to feel supported, they want to feel cherished, they want to feel taken care of, they want to have a true partner, and so on. So those are more traits that like a masculine man would bring into the world, into this life, right? So a masculine man, he is committed to his integrity. He is going to have a mission on his planet. That's part of his identity. So he's going to be really drawn to a woman who supports him on his mission, as opposed to competing with his mission. It's all just about work. It's never about me, right? Like, do you have to do this again, right? So when they feel that they're kind of like torn, they're like, wait a minute, you're part of my mission. I'm integrating, you're part of my mission, right? You're my power partner on this planet. But we also have to, of course, uplift humanity together. I can't just lift you up the whole time, right? At some point, we have to just, be able to create a healthy interdependence inside of ourselves and being able to take care of some of those needs so that we can uplift humanity and make that difference together. Now, if you like this content so far, of course, don't forget to like it, give it a thumbs up, and of course, share it as well. Now, another important aspect and attitude that men are really extremely looking for is they want you to communicate in a paced way. So when I talk to men or women, it's usually like they say, I want to have an effective communicator. Now, what does that mean? So what that doesn't mean is like over communicating all the time, right? It's like checking in every 5 seconds and talking the whole time and talking at the man versus actually having a conversation, actually setting a framework for the man, actually communicating in an engaging way, checking in with him, allowing him space to metabolize and digest what you just said, right? So if you don't communicate in a paced way, then it's literally going to feel like you're stuffing him like a turkey on Thanksgiving. And you don't give him any space to digest. Imagine you're going to a restaurant. You're like, oh, we have this tuna appetizer. Oh, that's great. Oh, here's the steak, here's the salmon, here's all the things. It's kind of like when you go to buffet, right? You just end this and then you're so stuffed. And then you show up to the table and you're upset that he doesn't want another dessert. He's going to feel like super overwhelmed. But if you're like, hey, let's have a glass of water, let's go on a walk, right? Like, let's digest what we just ate. That's what it really takes for a man to feel safe and to feel attracted to you, because that actually co-regulates his nervous system. It makes him feel safe, and it makes him feel it's actually sustainable. Because we all know if we just stuff our face all the time, that's not sustainable, right? It's just like absolutely not sustainable. At some point, you gain hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds, or you're going to get really sick, or whatever the case may be, but it's not sustainable. But if we eat, then we take some space. Just breathe into it. Take a moment. Lean into the unknown. Let life surprise you. That's when men are actually finding that true attraction towards you. Now, if you want to learn more about this and more tools, how to magnetize that man for you, then hop on over to MYM Facebook. It's our Facebook group, mymfbgroup.com. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to be really confusing, because number one is you're actually emotionally stable. So wait a minute, Antia, what are you just talking about? You just talked about emotional range. Now you're talking about being emotionally stable. Okay, so let me give you an example. When I met my husband, Brody, must have been a couple of weeks, we had a really important conversation, and I honestly broke down. It was a romantic setting. I was at the Ritz-Carlton, in the jacuzzi, in Hawaii. I mean, there's nothing better on this planet. But there was something that Brody triggered, because he has this ability to ask really deep questions. And he really got to a deep wound of mine. So I had somewhat of I just really cried. And you could almost categorize it as an emotional breakdown. Now, the next day, of course, Brody continued to date me. And I continued to date Brody. So when I asked Brody, I said, well, how come this didn't scare you? He said, well, because I asked myself, is this the worst of you, or is this you every day? Because every person has an emotional range. Again, my husband is a secure attachment style. So the secure attachment style will actually allow emotional outbursts. However, secure attachment style will also check in, is there overall stability to this woman? Is she fortifying her own nervous system? Does she have a hang of her attachment style? And so, because one thing that I was always good at is communicating. I told my husband that I have an anxious attachment style, not that same night, because remember, we talked about paced communication. But I told him very early on, hey, I have something called an anxious attachment style, not assuming that he knows necessarily that framework. And I just told him what that means is, I'm going to act this way. This is what's going to happen. Don't worry. I'm going to take care of it. And then I'm going to communicate it to you after. So he already knew I had an ability to take responsibility for my emotions. So he saw overall there was an emotional stability. There's an emotional resilience. There's an ability to bounce back from disappointment, when there's an emotional downfall. Are you able to bounce back from that? Do you have, quote unquote, an adult inside of yourself that can emotionally hold space for that little girl? That's what we mean when we say emotionally stable. Now, before I share my bonus secret, comment below what's your current status with your guy. Would love to hear all about it. And then also, that's very new here, every month we randomly select a comment from one of our videos to win a free access to one of our top programs, such as our ultimate love recipes. So we'd love to hear your thoughts below. Now, the bonus for those of you who stayed until the very end is you love all of his parts. Well, it's not just necessarily like the most likable parts, but maybe he has some quirky parts. Maybe he has some weird parts. Maybe he has some awkward parts. But it just almost softens your heart more. And it's not about, I'm not talking about you making an excuse for him. But you're authentically, because men can totally tell if you authentically accept them or not. But you authentically accept them for all of who they are because it's them. And of course, that comes from a place of you accepting all of who you are. Because it's you. You're quirky or you're silly. Look, I sing like super silly songs and dance through the kitchen and do the fish dance and all the things. And normally Master's like, what's going on? But he knows, it's just Antia, it's just normal. You know what I mean? We're just doing the chicken dance. That's no problem. And so that's the same thing that he's looking for from his woman too. He wants to feel free as well to express himself. Now, if you haven't taken my free Magnetize Your Man quiz, go ahead, hop on over to mymquiz.com and get some clarity where you're at in your dating life and how you can attract the right man for you. And of course, if you haven't done so already, then go ahead and watch our next video. When a man deeply loves you, he will start saying these 5 things. Lots of love to you, ladies. Mwah! And I will talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.